لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ به من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل بدعة ضلالة. Inshallah, today we will talk about the concept of infaq or spending. At the very beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes his book Alif Lam Mim Dhalikal Kitabul La Rayba Fih. And then he mentioned that this book is not a book of science, it's not a book of history, it's not a book of geography or political science. It's actually Hudan lil Muttaqin, it's a book of guidance for those who are characterized by the Quran as Al-Muttaqin. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word taqwa and is derived to Muttaqin at several places, without actually defining what is taqwa. But the qualities or characteristics of al-muttaqun, the pious ones, or who fear God or who are conscious of God, are described in many places, including this verse. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes as الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ إِلَى آخِرِ الْآيَةِ. So three primary characteristics of those who are conscious of Allah all the time, for whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this book as a source of guidance, are those who have first belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without even seeing him. Ghaib has been described in different ways, I will not go into that today. And then وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ, they establish the prayers. And it's not praying, it's establishing the prayer. Which means at the level of a community, there has to be a group who will establish the mosque, the masjid, who will take care of it, who will pay for it, who will arrange for the prayers, and so forth. And individually, people who pray at the appropriate time with all the etiquettes and manners that have been described in the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the next part, وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, and from what we have given them by way of risk, they spend. So the key words here are risk and yunfiqun, which is derived from the root word nafaqa, from which al-infaq or spending is derived. The way Imam Razi explains these things is that the first thing is that who is a muttaqi, and according to him it is the muttaqi huwa alladhi yakunu fa'ilan lil hasanat wa tarikan lis sayyi'at. So a very simplistic definition, that a person who performs good deeds, and good is what is described by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be good, and good is what we human beings at a basic level consider to be something which is good. But tarikan lis sayyi'at, and who gives up whatever is not good. The opposite of hasanat will be sayyi'at. And then he said that the fa'il lil hasanat, doers of good. The word fa'il is derived from fail, which means an action. And he said that action can be of two types. This is how Razi actually tries to explain word by word and giving through different dimensions of meaning. So the fail can be a fail of qalb, an action of the heart, which is iman bil ghaib. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started with yu'minuna bil ghaib first. And then second part is action through our body organs, which is fail lil jawarih. And of them the top two are, one is as-salat and the second is mimma razaqnahum yunfiqun, which can be interpreted as zakat, but it's a much more wider concept. So he said that لأن العبادة إما أن تكون بدنية وأجلها الصلاة. The acts of worship are related to the body, al-jawarih, and of them the topmost is as-salat. And we know from the hadith as well that the first action for which we will be questioned in the hereafter will be as-salat. And if the salat is correct, all other parts of the examination will become easy. And second action of the jawarih, it says maliya, financial, wa ajalluha az-zakat. And the most notable one is the zakat, but we'll talk about it in detail. And then Razi quotes two of the ahadith from the Prophet ﷺ to support what he's saying. He said, the Prophet said, as-salatu imaduddin. Prayer, 5 regular prayers, are the pillar of iman. Iman is established upon that. And the hadith, second hadith is, zakatu qantaratul Islam. Zakat is the bridge of Islam. Now how can it be a bridge? And its bridge is that it bridges the community members. It's a bridge between haves and have-nots. It's a bridge between the underprivileged and overprivileged. It's a bridge between the powerful and the weak. It joins them. When we look at the needs of the community and try to fulfill them, it bridges them. It bridges the gap between the different social strata that we have, that we all become equal, but the needs of the underprivileged are fulfilled by the access that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to the others. So here the beauty of the language is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not use the word az-zakat. And one reason is that when this ayah was revealed in the early part of Medinan life of the Prophet ﷺ, zakat was not prescribed, it was not made obligatory. According to majority of scholars, it was made obligatory afterwards when the Islamic State was established, because collection and distribution of zakat at the time of the Prophet ﷺ and his khulafa was the responsibility of the state, not of individuals, although individuals could also do that. But the second part is that the concept of infaq here is far more extensive and comprehensive than zakat only. So now Razi continues, he said, first is وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ, which is from risk. So what is risk? We oftentimes confuse risk and mal. For the most part, when we talk about risk, the word mal comes to our mind. That is the mal that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. But he said literally a risk fi kalam al-Arab huwa al-hajj. That in the language of the Arab, risk is hajj, it will be nasib, which many Urdu speaking people will understand. That whatever Allah has written down for you, whatever Allah has given you. So it's not necessarily the wealth that we get. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is just my own way of thinking, that everybody, like Rousseau actually said, that man is born free and then he becomes a slave. We are all born free, then we become slaves. Slaves to different temptations, our circumstances, our parents, our teachers, our environment. But when a person is born, he's born free, and Allah has given every individual some talents. They are put into our genes, so there are genetic things, and then there are environmental things. And everybody is endowed with some specific talent. There are people who never went to school, who turned out to be outstanding poets and novelists. People who never went to learn painting, but they became outstanding painters. So there are natural, God-given talents that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. Some people are stronger than others, some are taller than others, some are smarter than others. So all kinds of characteristics that qualify us human beings are given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in varying degrees. And then it is our environment, our training, our parents, our teachers who help in enhancement of these abilities. And then the more we use it, the more expertise we develop in them. But there is something which is God-given. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do when He has given us those talents? Again, going back to Rousseau and other Thomas Hobbes and so forth, that how did inequality in mankind develop? And they say that at the very beginning, the life was very simple because people would survive on vegetations. There was no air conditioner, nothing to store. People did not compete with each other. They just filled their bellies and that's it. But once foraging started, the hunters and all that, then competition started and inequality developed. And then the desire to hold more and desire to have more led to the strong overcoming the poor. That led to inequality. So those who were stronger were able to get more and then they became richer. So they could enslave others. So according to those philosophers and writers of political theory, this is how things started. And this has continued. We see that struggle, power struggle going on, struggle for money as well. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that if you have a talent, whether it's a financial talent, some physical strength, intellectual talent, you are supposed to spend it and help those who do not have it. In fact, recently you might have seen that forwarded message that we have the first proof that human beings were not always barbarics. That there is a fractured bone discovered which has healed up, which means that a man fell down and broke his bone, femur. Somebody took the time to stay with him and help him heal his bone. So that's the concept of infaq, that you take the time to look at the needs of people around you and you help heal their wounds. The wounds can be the wounds of poverty, wounds of sickness, wounds of mental stress. A lot of people need our help. Sometimes we recognize the signs from their faces, sometimes we ignore them. Even in our family, everybody has a story. When you're walking, when you're driving, you look around, the person who's driving next to you has a story. When you're in an elevator, there may be somebody who looks like he's ignoring you, but you don't know what's going on through his mind. Everyone has a story, but in our own family, we need to be talking to each other to try and find out what the needs are. That also falls into the category of mimma razaqnahum yunfiqun. And then Razi goes on to al-infaq al-wajib wal-infaq al-mandub. So there is a spending which is mandatory, which is first obviously zakat, but then the other is al-infaq al-mandub. Spending or helping others, you can say, or fulfilling the needs of others, which is highly recommended and recognized by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The wajib infaq categories, obviously zakat is wajib, but other than that, a man is responsible for the nafaqah, nano-nafaqah as we say in Urdu, which is also from infaq, of taking care of the needs of his wife, his children, and his parents. And if he has more, brothers and sisters as well. The infaq mandub relates to utilizing everything that you have for the benefit of others. Be it an idea, be it a suggestion, opinion, spreading the prayer sheet for somebody, helping someone cross the road, helping someone do their homework, There are a lot of things that can be done. And then he says that al-infaqu ala-nafs is spending on one's own self as well, taking care of one's own body. Islam mentions, the Prophet mentioned, al-mu'min al-qawi khairun min al-mu'min al-dhaif. A strong moment is better than a weak moment. Now, it doesn't imply physical strength only. It can also mean financial strength. The Muslims have to be financially sound, technologically advanced. Technological strength is a strength. Military strength is a strength. If we don't have it, people will run over us. And then similarly, taking care of our own body means taking time to go and get the vaccine. If you're sick, do not come. In fact, my son talked to me and said, Dad, I have sinus. I said, don't come to the masjid, pray at home. It will be better for you to do that. So taking care of yourself is also extremely important. Now the question is, what should we spend? How much should we spend? So when Allah says spend, the next question was, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ. So Prophet, when they come to you now and ask you, how much shall we spend or what shall we spend? And the answer from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, قُلِ الْأَفْ, whatever is in excess of what you need. So when a time comes when you have to spend, just go ahead and spend, don't ask a question. And this falls into the category of a beautiful story from Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, from where this Good Samaritan rule comes. That a lawyer came to Isa alayhi salatu wasalam and says, what action can I do that will make me a good person? He said, take care of your neighbor. And his question was, who is the neighbor? So he's asking, define who is the neighbor. And he says, you are the neighbor. And he gives him a story that a person has sustained an accident or something and is by the road, and nobody comes to help him. But then a Samaritan, by the way, in that context, there were Jews and there were non-Jews, and Samaritans, the residents of Samaria, were not Jewish and they were kind of frowned upon. But that guy took time to sit down with someone who had fallen down to help him stand up and cross the road. And then Jesus tells that lawyer, you are that neighbor, which means you go out and find who is your neighbor who needs your help. So anyone who needs your help is your neighbor. That is the concept that we have in our religion. So there are different explanations of this word al-afwa. What you can spend. Some of them say this, whatever you can spend easily is al-afwa. They'll say whatever is beyond your immediate needs is afwa. The other says al-wastu min al-nafaqa. Spending in moderation, as Surah Bani Israel has mentioned, ma lam yakun israfan wala iqtaran. You do not overspend, like you're not a spendthrift, and at the same time you don't tie your hands together that you are just too stingy to spend anything. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave spending a much, much deeper dimension than simply spending or spending whatever is above and beyond our needs. So that verse is called Ayatul Bir. لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ وَمَا تُنْفِقُوا مِنْ شَيْءٍ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِهِ عَلِيمٌ. That you will never ever learn in Arabic is a very emphatic negative. You will never achieve what is piety, the highest level of being good, until you spend. And the ayah did not end here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took it to a much deeper level. مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. Spending from what you love. So let's say the masjid has a drive to collect clothes for people in Syria or Afghanistan or wherever. And on the same day there's a cricket match going on. We love to watch cricket. Now taking some time out of what you love to come to the masjid and help is mimma tuhibbun. If you have nothing to do and you're completely bored and you go to the masjid, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. But if you take time out of your hobby and then come to the masjid or wherever to help, that is mimma tuhibbun. That's the level of bir that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. The second mimma tuhibbun explanation that is given is amwalakum an-nafisata allati tuhibbuha nufusakum فإنكم إذا قدمتم محبة الله على محبة الأموال فبذلتموها في مرضاته دل ذلك على إيمانكم الصادق وبر قلوبكم ويقين تقواكم فيدخل في ذلك إنفاس نفاس الأموال والإنفاق في حالة حاجة. So what Raj is trying to tell you is that what you spend is not something that you want to get rid of. And this is what we have been experiencing, unfortunately, in our masajid, that there are things that you want to throw off, but it will cost you money to get rid of the junk, so why not bring it to the masjid? Again, this is not from what you love. If something doesn't function, your printer is not functioning, let me bring it to the masjid. I have an old TV that nobody wants to use, let me bring it to the masjid. That's not what it falls into that. It is actually that you put Allah's love before your love of something. That is mimma tuhibbun, according to Imam Razi. And said, when you do that, only then it will testify to the truth of your iman that you claim to be a believer, but are you truly a believer or not? Depends upon spending from what you love for yourself, only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, putting your love of mal on the back burner. And then we'll say that that your taqwa is now reached a level of certainty, and that is something that Razi said that will take the performer to the Jannah, inshallah. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. There are many stories from the books of Hadith, but in the interest of time I will mention one where the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajmain, when this ayah was revealed in Medina, did exactly what this ayah tells us. So one of the stories is from both Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, hadith narrated by Anas bin Malik radiallahu ta'ala, who is talking about Abu Talha, that among the Ansar of Medina, Abu Talha had the most gardens of date. And of all those gardens, there was one date palm garden called Birha that he loved the most of all of his gardens. So when this ayah was revealed, mimma tuhibbun, from what you love, he went to the Prophet and said, no, I own a lot of great gardens, but this is the one that I love most. And I want to give this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when he went there, the Prophet accepted it, but then he said, go and give it to your relatives. When the Prophet could have kept it for himself, but he's giving it to me, I am the Prophet of Allah. He said, no, Allah has already accepted what you have given, but now go and give this garden to your relatives. So why to the relatives? In this way, his reward was doubled. One was reward in spending in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, acting upon this word. The second is Silatul Rahm, joining the ties of kinship. Now try to imagine that there are 4 or 5 brothers, and one of them is the richest. The others are just poor guys. If the rich brother takes care of his other brothers' families, what would those families do? They will pray for his long life. They will pray that he has more money so that he can spend more on them. So Silatul Rahm actually increases the life, according to the hadith. So there are many other things, but I don't have the time to explain, to go into that. But I want to tell you about one particular incident which is related to what has happened in this community. It was August 20th, 1971, and I do remember that day. I was an 8th grade student. And on that day, an incident happened in Pakistan. The entire nation went into mourning, a phase of mourning, and then a phase of celebration. A 21-year-old pilot officer, Rashid Minhas, made a highly important decision that probably none of us can make in a split second. It was very quick thinking that the life of a nation is more important than the life of an individual, in which In this case, it was his own life. A person was trying to hijack an airplane from Pakistan into enemy territory. And Rashid Minhas Shaheed, 21-year-old, decided that it was not going to happen. And so the entire country went into mourning, and this brilliant gentleman became the recipient of the highest military award in Pakistan, Nishani Haidar. He's the youngest one, still 50 years later, to have received this honor. A few months later, I think probably that his sisters, and I still remember the name, Rukhsana Minhas, achieved first position in English literature from Karachi University. The reason I remember is twofold, because at that time I was very interested in English literature, but my father didn't want me to do that. But the second thing was that I was quite amazed. Who are the parents who raised a young man with a brilliant mind, quick thinking, and a spirit of self-sacrifice, and then another girl who became the top position holder? And I'm from Karachi University. My medical college was part of Karachi University. It's not easy to be a position holder from Karachi University. The standard was very high in those days and still is. I never met, obviously never met them, never met any of their family members, but just recently this week, I found that Rashid Minhas's mother, Rashida Minhas, passed away in Karachi on December 11th, I believe, and Rashid Minhas' sister, Rana, is part of this community. I never had the honor of meeting Rashid Minhas's mother, but just looking at what her children did, we can get some idea of the personality of that great lady, how she trained her children. Quick thinking that when it comes to saving your country, don't think about your life. And when it comes to examinations and studies, put everything into that. I was just researching the rewards that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for the shuhada. And there are many of them, but one of them kind of struck chord with me today. If there is shaheed will be given permission by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to intercede for 70 people to take with him into Jannah. Now just imagine if you and I were given a chance to take just one person with us to Jannah, who will that be? Our mother. Is there any disagreement on that? Our mother. So all I can say is, based upon this hadith, that inshallah, with Allah's mercy, nobody can do anything with Allah's mercy, that we make dua, we hope that Sister Rashida Minhas finds a place in Jannah with us. اللهم اغفر لحينا وميتنا وصغيرنا وكبيرنا وذكرنا وانثانا وشاهدنا وغائبنا. اللهم اغفر لها وارحمها وادخلها في جنة الفردوس. اللهم تجاوز عنها واغسلها بالماء والبرد والثلج. We also have a couple of one brother and one sister who are sick. Brother Izaz Haq, who is one of the past board members of this masjid, father of two girls. He was involved in an accident, and we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his complete and speedy recovery. And then the mother of Dr. Ibrahim Siddiqui, who is also part of this community, is probably here. She was hospitalized and has been discharged, and we make dua for her as well. اللهم رب الناس أذهب الباس اشف أنت شافي لا شفاء إلا شفاء شفاء لا يغادر سقما. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. ربنا هب لنا من الصالحين. اللهم أنت الصاحب في السفر والخليفة في المال والأهل والولد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين